Hello, I'm RC Jim, and today I want to talk to you about these two different transmitters. Spektrum NX6, we've gone through in detail on reviewing that. That's my big standard set of transmitter that I love. That's really good. But recently I discovered that Flysky puts out a really nice transmitter for a whole lot less money. You're talking about less than a quarter of the price for that as compared to this. This is 8-channel, that's 6-channel. So go figure. So anyway, today I want to have a look at the Flysky, make some comparisons with the Spektrum. The Spektrum is obviously going to be overall better, but is it $300 or $400 better than the Flysky? So yeah. Just watch and then you can make your own decision as to which one is going to do the job for you. And I might mention that the plane in the background there, that Great Plains Trainer 40, that's that one that I learned on 25 years ago with my boys. Yeah, we've repaired it again, and today we flew it with the Flysky radio, and it did a beautiful job. So, watch. Now right off the bat, as you look at these two radios, you realize that the one on the left has got 8 channels and the one on the right has 6 or 7, depending on how you look at it. But we've got an awful lot of switches over here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 switches across the top, plus a button. And on the Flysky, we've got 4 switches and 2 knobs. The knobs are great if you need something for knobs, but when you need more switches, you really need more switches. So that's one obvious sort of difference. So let's have a close look at our Flysky radio here. We've got a little carry handle antenna. Downside of that is one finger is not reliable, whereas with the Spektrum, one finger does great. But kind of cool looking. Of course, with the Flysky radio, this is their newer development. They've got more boxy, squared, more old-fashioned sort of ones that you often find with planes that come with a radio. But this one here is the newer version, and really quite nice. It has a nice sort of grip on the back as far as holding on to it, comfortable feel. Sticks are a little bit shorter, but I was asked about that today, and I said, well, I didn't notice any difference. But yeah, they're actually a little bit shorter. So I suppose with the Spektrum, you got a little bit better control that way. But really, you know, the fact is you want them in the right place at the end of the day, and how far you move them, you know, it's up to your thumb. So that's not really a big deal. Weight-wise, it's a little bit lighter weight, which is a positive thing as far as radios are concerned. You do have this neat little thing here, and you say, well, what good is that? Well, of course, it's got the little place to clip on the lanyard to support it. It's also got a little threaded thing to where you could put another display or whatever you might want to mount there, microphone or whatever else. And that thing also, it hits before the sticks hit. If the radio falls over, it means that it's going to hit on that to take the bulk of the load rather than on the sticks. We've got 4 switches and 2 knobs on the radio. 3 of these are 2-position switches and 1 is a 3-position switch. I am told you can replace a 2-position switch with a 3-position switch, and it's already got the wiring in place to be able to do that, and it's got the software in the radio to be able to recognize that it's become 3-position. I'm thinking I'll probably end up doing that because I like to have my flaps here. On the Spektrum, you know, that's my flaps, and I got my mode. So on this one I've got mode just being 1 and 2. Whereas on the Spektrum, I've got 3 positions for the mode, but 2 is fine for me. You know, basically I want 1 for taking off and landing and 1 for doing stunts. You know, that's my thought. But with the flaps, you know, it'd be nice to have the 3 positions, but then I'm also thinking I could use the knob on the flaps. But if I'm going to do that, I can't rely upon this little indentation to indicate where it's pointing to. I'm going to have to, you know, put a little screw in it or do something where I can feel where that thing is put a lever on it, I don't know exactly what, but it needs to be able to feel where it is without moving it back and forth all the time. So that'd be a possibility for the flaps there. As you come down, we've got the gimbals, and they feel quite nice. No problem at all with them. Feel pretty normal. I noticed the way that this is calibrated, that just a tiny bit off of 0 on the throttle, and I've got the engine running. But I don't think I've actually calibrated the throttle with this one, with the planes. That would be my mistake there for not doing that. On the trims, we got 2 little joysticks. So these little buttons down here, they function just like one of the joysticks. And so you get the plane up there, get it mid-throttle or whatever, and you're flying more or less straight and level, and of course having to adjust for wherever it's out of trim. And then with it flying straight and level, just go over to this and work it just like a joystick to fly that plane and get it right. And of course it's making little adjustments as you push up and down and back and forth. And as you do that, you can get the trim to where it's just right, you know. So I like that. I'm always, you know, with the Spektrum, as I'm flying it, I'm looking at the plane and I'm reaching over here trying to feel where that button is, you know, and I've got to feel where this one is and where that one is and whatever. Whereas with this, you just have to get your finger in one place and you can be flying with one thumb and then take over with the other one and get those trim settings to where you want them. If it needs to get recovered, you've got the finger there, the thumb there that can do what it needs to do. So I kind of like that little joystick idea. Okay, then on the display, Spektrum has a bigger display, but what I discovered today is a rather sunny day, and as I'm out there, I got to have the throttle at the lowest setting. It also requires you to have all these switches in the opposite position, which I really like. But as I was flying today, with any of these displays, they start out nice and bright, and then after a certain period of time, it goes dim. With the Spektrum one, I can't read it when it's dim and I'm outside. You know, I'm sorry, I just can't read it. But with this one, when it goes dim, I didn't have any problem at all. Just holding up the radio as I'm looking at the plane, and you know, there it goes dim right there. So looking up the plane, and it was as sharp could be. So I love that about the screen on this particular one. Okay, next to the screen, we've got a menu button and a back button. Okay, so the menu button takes you to the menu, and you've got 4 segments of the menu: transmitter set, receiver set, model set, and general menu. You've got a scroll wheel similar to the Spektrum. Everything's a little bit smaller, and 2 buttons here instead of 3 with the Spektrum. But nonetheless, you scroll the wheel over to get whichever thing you wanted. And so for on transmitter set, we get there, and then you push in on the scroll wheel, and it's a button just like on the Spektrum. Okay, so for transmitter settings, we got the model. So that's to identify which one, and you can have multiple model settings in here. Not as many as the Spektrum, I don't think, but more than what I've got planes. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. So it tells you the name of the plane that you've given. As you go into model select, you then have the list of your planes. So at the moment I've got the Red Tail P-51 and the Great Plains 40 as planes that are in there. Okay, now to go back, you don't press the menu button. That doesn't do anything to go back. You have to press the back button to go back to the menu, which is something I find strange. You know, I would have thought hitting the menu button would take you back to this menu no matter where you are. It doesn't work that way. You got to just go back. Okay, so you got the model, you got the trainer to go into the trainer mode, trainer and trainee, the stick mode, and with the stick mode, what's important here, oops, get it back out of there, cancel calibrations, stick mode, if I can get in there without turning it, And I do have that same problem with the Spektrum. Sometimes when you go to push in on the scroll wheel, you turn it a little bit. But you'll note here that this is telling you what the channels are. Okay, and the Flysky is different than the Spektrum. The Spektrum, you got throttle on channel 1, aileron channel 2, elevator channel 3, and rudder channel 4. But as you can see here with mode 2, your throttle is the up and down over here. That's channel 3. And oops, I meant to just wake that up. Get back into stick mode. Okay, so as you can see here, the throttle on this side, that's channel 3. Over here, aileron is channel 1. Okay, elevator is channel 2. Mentioned throttle channel 3, and rudder is channel 4. Okay, so you've got to stick with those. So you keep that in mind, that you can get at that by going to the menu with the modes. And as you do that, you'll notice that you do have 4 different modes that you can select from. So mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, and mode 4. Okay, of course I like mode 2. Okay, so we go back, stick mode, calibration. That's to calibrate your sticks. So you go in there, and you want to start out with all the sticks centered. And when you look at the little graphy thing on the side there, you'll have a line that you can line up. Get it to where the light is shining on it, right to where I can see it. Okay, so that's pretty well lined up, and of course the other one is going to be automatically right, and as is this one. Okay, so then start is highlighted, so I click the start button. I need to then move the stick to their maximum minimum travel. So we go all the way up, all the way each way, and then just go around just to make sure that we've gotten through all of the things. And now we do the same thing with this one. And going all the way around, and then we click OK, and it says calibration successful. So that's all it was to that. System setting, you got a variety of things in here. So the language, I got it in English. Sound, system, and alarm. Okay, so that's when it gives you a beep. If you have system and alarm, then a lot of times when you're doing things, it's going to, like if you select something on the menu, it's going to give you a beep. You've also got vibration down here, and you can see I've got that just set on alarm, but you could also pick system or system and alarm for that one. For me, having the thing vibrate every time I pick a menu setting or whatever, it's kind of annoying. And I'd rather just simply let it give me a beep to acknowledge that. Okay, then you got a volume from 0 to 10. Alarm time, 3 minutes. Now the 3-minute alarm time is your inactivity setting. So if it sets there for 3 minutes, it's then going to give you an alarm to say, hey, you haven't touched me for 3 minutes, did you forget something? Okay, grade, I have no idea what that is. I shot for 100. I don't know why it's given us a 5. But anyway, I don't know what that is. Battery type, AA's. With this, with the batteries in the back, you can either have 4 AA's or you can have a 2S battery. So that's where you select what you got there. LED color, we could have yellow. Oh, we're talking about the color of these things up here. That's what it was. Okay, it's reminding me of this throttle. So you see now they're yellow. Okay, so that was under system setting. So the getting down here to the second page, the LED color is talking about these arrow thingies up here. Okay, and how bright, that's saying 10%. I don't want to waste a lot of power, but obviously you could, move them to different levels. Brightness is the screen brightness, and as you select that, it just is lighting up the backlight more. But you see, it's actually can read it reasonably well without it, and I'm happy with the 50%, which is the standard. And the auto shutdown would be when, after its system is idle, that it automatically turns off. And that's probably not a good idea, just in case you are flying the plane and don't have to touch it for a long period of time. But anyway, that's that. Okay, so we go back, and we've gone through our system menu there, so we go back again. Okay, then we got timers, and they automatically have this set up with 2 timers. I say automatically, by default it's got 2 timers, which is what I love to do. I love to have one as a countdown and one as a stopwatch. The countdown I use to set alarms, and the stopwatch I use to seriously know what elapsed time has gone by. The type, it's going down, so it's counting down. And it gives me, right next to the down, a place where I can set the, I'll get back here, select timers. Okay, next to the down I can dial in minutes and seconds. The start, naturally you want the throttle to start the timer. And as you select throttle, it then gives you the % throttle, where it's going to see that it's something serious. And so I put in 15% there. You could use one of the switches to start it. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Okay, stop. You got stop and you got reset. Okay, so stop is just to pause it. But in actual fact, by using the throttle at the 15% start, that actually will start and stop it without having that stop in there. So if I arm my throttle and I get it going, I've got my throttle counting down there, and as I pull the throttle down, it stops counting. I put it back up again, it starts. I pull it down, it stops. So it works perfectly normal that way. And with me, what I've done, because of the lack of switches, I have used the same switch that I use to disarm the throttle. I also use that to reset the timer. Now the downside about that is that today, with both of my flights of that plane, I'm watching the time while I'm flying it, and I've got the thing set on 5 minutes, and I'm thinking I better quit before then just to see how the battery is doing, and so forth. And so I stop, and I think the first time I flew for 2.5, 3 minutes, something like that, and the second time was probably 3.5 to 4 minutes. But immediately when I bring the plane back, the automatic thing is I'm going to disarm the throttle, and it resets the timer. And so I wanted to know how much time I spent, and that silly thing disarmed it. So then I thought, well, I'll let this switch disarm or reset the countdown timer, but I'll have the stopwatch to where it doesn't do that. And then the problem I had is that when I'm going along here like this, and okay, so I got some time on there, and so I quit. Well, let's get in there and do that. Okay, so we're still in transmitter set. We're in the second page, first item, timers. Okay, and so I want timer 2, so I select where the timers is, then I dial across to get 2, press it again to select that, and then I come down here to reset, and I say none. Okay. Okay. And to me, I was thinking, okay, if I got that one to where it doesn't reset, then what I can do is when I'm all done, I can just turn off the transmitter and turn it back on. And you would think that that would reset it. But as we get back out of this, okay, so we flick this up. It has reset the countdown timer, has not reset the other one. So I turn off the radio, and then I turn it back on again. and it still has the elapsed time. Now, I suppose with that, what they're thinking is that you might want to keep track of how many hours you've actually flown that particular plane, just like a real plane. So that bottom one would be the total hours that are on the plane, and time to turn it in for a service or whatever it might be. So I guess that's their thinking, with regard to that. But I use it in a different way. Actually, I haven't checked on this radio to see what happens when you go past the 5 minutes, and I guess that's worthwhile doing. Let's go in there again. We'll go down to timers, and back to timer number 1, and we'll just count down from a few seconds. So each time we press in to be able to change it, and then the second time we press in to select it. Okay, so now I'm going to back out of this. Okay, and so we're going to start. I got to arm the throttle. Okay, so we start going. So it's counting down, and I've got my alarm going. Okay, so it's the same sort of thing that happens with the Spektrum. And that is, after it hits 0, it starts counting up. And if you're just glancing down at your radio, I mean, it would be on minutes over here, and you'd glance down and you'd see, oh, it's, 4 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it might be. But unless you're watching to see whether it's going up or down, you could get that really wrong. Whereas with the bottom one, with the elapsed time, there's no question as to what it is. It's saying that we've been going for a minute, So that's why I like to have that one in that particular way. Given that I haven't used switch B for anything on this particular plane, I could use that to reset the timer. But the problem is that I'm going to have landing gear on some plane, and that's going to be landing gear, because I would normally have the landing gear on the back on this one. That's my landing gear. So I don't have anything on the back, so I think I'll use that for landing gear. Well, the next thing that we have after timers is switch settings, and that just simply tells you what set of switches you got. So A, B, and C, or A, B, and D are all 2-position switches. Switch C is a 3-position switch, and VRA and VRB are both on. They're there, present. C and D, there isn't any. Key 1 and 2, there isn't any. So those ones are all off. Throttle, non-self-centering, just one that comes down. And 8 channels. So those are just things to tell the radio what you've got. Firmware update, this is where you hook it up to your computer and update the firmware. And it will tell you, actually, then the next one, an about, it will tell you what version of firmware you've got. So this one's got 1.0.27, which was May 27th of a little over a year ago. So I probably ought to check that, even though it's brand new. What version of hardware, and the radio frequency 3.2. Going back, then Help Center, they just give you a QR code to be able to go to a manual online. So you just scan that with your phone, and that'll take you to that manual. And then for more, it just gives you the website that you can go to, flysky-cn.com. Okay, so that's the transmitter menu. On the receiver menu, you've got the binding settings. So this has got both pulse width modulation as well as iBus. So both of them will work fine with this. Frequency 50 Hertz. And the RF standard is 2-way, so the transmitter is going to communicate to the receiver, and the receiver is going to communicate back to the transmitter. When you go to bind it, you just simply use the bind menu here, and you get your receiver flashing, and they're just like the more modern Spektrum receivers where you push in a button, it starts flashing. When it does that, you click start here, and it binds it pretty well instantly. Okay, we go back. Failsafe. Now this is what happens when the receiver loses signal from the transmitter. So the receiver's still got power, the airplane is flying, it's lost signal from the transmitter. What do you want it to do? By default, what it's going to do is just pick all of the settings that you have when you go in here to set it, and it's just going to have it just like that. So 0 throttle, neutral controls, all that type of thing. And so the hope would be it'll just keep on flying for a little bit straight and level, and then pick up the signal again, and you can start flying it like normal. It might be that you want to actually put in a little bit of aileron or rudder to make it go in circles so it doesn't just totally fly away, but that'd be up to you. Okay, sensor. Right now just sensing the transmitter voltage and saying it's 5.3 volts at this point in time. If you had other sensors, it would list those there. And they do have quite a few options on this radio and the receiver with regard to sensors that you can get for RPM, temperature, voltage of the receiver battery, and so forth. RF settings. This is talking about the antenna, whether you're going to have an internal or external antenna. And on the back here, you've got a place to plug in accessories back here and mounting points to mount them, to where you can get just wondering, boy, that'd be nice if those are buttons. Probably have another radio that they are. But anyway, you can mount accessories back here, so people that are into FPV and stuff like that, they can have a big antenna that gives them a lot more range and hook on whatever gear they need back there for that. iBus. iBus, we don't tend to use that with the airplanes. It's more used with the drones, where they got a little bit of a computer thing happening in the aircraft. But with the iBus, it's going to just simply plug into the channel number 1 on the receiver, and then that's going to carry all of the information for all of the channels to the processor in the aircraft, which is then going to determine what it needs to do with the 4 rotor motors or whatever it might have to control in order to make it do what you want it to do. So this is related to that, so it's not something that I get into. Okay, sensor calibration, so if with temperature and things like that to be able to calibrate it, and GPS setting, if you had a GPS unit hooked up on the plane and it's sending information back, you'd use this to set that up. Okay, so that's all of the transmitter and receiver stuff. So now we get into the model set. So the next thing that we've got in the menu is conditions. So we get into there. These conditions are like different rate settings. So it gives you 3 possibilities. So you could put it on a 3-position switch and have 3 different sets of rates. I've just got it on 1 switch, so switch A. So anyway, on the conditions S1, that is just, well, conditions 1, that is just however you set it without anything flicked. And then to go into conditions 2, it asks you which switch do you want. So just like with a Spektrum, you can switch the switch and it will tell you what it is. When you go in there, you can see that it says down. Now if I select that and I go to up, it doesn't verify that here, but if I go into it again, I will see the up. I don't want up, I want down. So I select that, which took me right out of it, and now if I go in there without changing it, it says switch A down is what it is. So without pressing anything, I just simply exit it, and that's how it is. If I was using the 3-position switch, then I could have a third one down here. And when you get into your rates and expo, then you'll be able to select those to work from. Okay, and rates and curve is next, so that's our expo and rates. So the rate has to do with how far the control goes when it's the stick is all the way over. And the curve is the expo. It's what sort of, curve it's got in the thing. With this plane, I wanted to, well, I've got it set to where I've got some pretty big throws on the on the high rates switch there. But for testing it out and everything, I wanted to be really conservative, so I went way down, and I just have it on 30% of full travel, and then 38% expo in there. Whereas with the on the full rates, going the full travel 100% and 40 on the expo. Now, in flying the plane today, as I did that, just with it up in the air, I flicked it over to high rates, and boy, it was really much more aggressive than what I wanted it to be. So I think what I'm going to do, I'll back off a little bit on the maximum, but I'm going to dial in an awful lot of expo. And so the general idea is that when I think about how it's responding here, I look at the angle of that line right near the middle. And if I can get that same sort of thing happening with the high rates, at least something closer to it anyway, dial it right in there. If I give it 100 expo, which I've never ever had on a plane, but if I did that, it gives me a very nice control near the middle, and then I can really go crazy if I, go out to the extreme with the stick. So I might try something more like that, and we'll just play around with it and see how it goes. So in here, the C2 is your switch setting for the conditions. So conditions 1, conditions 2. And then for each one you can set it as you want. It doesn't have the curves labeled like what they do in the Spektrum, but I find it kind of confusing, the Spektrum, with that. I just have it to where you set the rate and the expo for whatever you want on the channel that you want. With these, you've only got the 3 channels naturally to do that with. So you got channel 1, channel 2, and channel 4. So 3 is the throttle, and that's done separately. Okay, back to the menu, and throttle curve is the next thing. And with throttle curve, it's kind of like the expo, only the line can go back and forth. So it's telling you for each of these positions, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, going right across the level of travel for the throttle, it's saying what the output is going to be. So at A, it's minus 100, and at G, at the opposite end, it's plus 100. And the way it's set up right now is it's going to go pretty linear going up that line. But if you had something that you felt you needed it to be, say for example, right now you just start to move the stick and it starts going. So it might be that I actually want to have B be a slightly larger negative number to where it doesn't sort of get started so quick. Or I could even have B be the place where it starts, But anyway, yeah, that's something that's there if you want to play with it. And that did have the conditions 1 and the condition 2 selections on it. Throttle hold, this is your safety switch. So with this status on, switch D is up, and it means the throttle is cut to 0. And it doesn't go minus. I kind of wondered about that. It doesn't go minus at all, so it's just simply 0. So with that switch up, throttle is not going to do anything. Okay, V-tail is if you have the V-tail type plane, and it's basically just mixing between channels 2 and 4 to get the output that you want. So that's it for the model set, and then we come to the general menu. With the general menu, first off you have the monitor, and that shows you where all the stick positions are, and it shows you the trim settings for the various things. So if I use the throttle, it doesn't show anything, but that's because I got the safety switch on. If I arm the throttle, then you can see on channel 3 it's going up and down. Okay, aileron, it's going on number 1, and remember I've got this set with really low rates on there, so it's not showing you much because it's not doing much. Oh, I might mention as well, with this particular plane, and we'll get into this on mixing, but I've got a separate servo on each aileron. And I got thinking about it, and I thought, well, first off, they had real long leads on them, and I'm thinking I got this big long lead, and I have to put a Y harness on that and then plug it into the receiver. And I got thinking, I got 8 channels on this plane that's made to run with 4. Why not use a separate channel for each of those and then use the mixing to control them? So that's what I've got here, is both channels 1 and channel 6 are ailerons. So this is the left aileron, that's the right aileron. And with the mixing, it's mixed at 100%, so everything that goes to 1 gets also sent to 6. And that way I've got both ailerons working. It's eliminated the Y harness, which has eliminated several points of connection. And it also means that each one of those ailerons have got separate independent connection to the receiver, so that if something happened to one of those wires, I still got one aileron that'll work, and with one working aileron you can control an airplane, at least as far as the aileron control goes. That's what I did with the aileron. In a similar way, I've got a separate servo on the nose wheel. And so with the rudder, I've got 4 and 5. They're working together using mixing, using one channel for the nose wheel and one channel for the rudder. Okay, reverse. Naturally, if you need to reverse things, just go across and select the ones that you need and reverse them. Endpoints, right now I've got everything on 100%, but you could cut that back. I'm just using the rates and expo thing to limit that, but you could use that, and you've also got a sub-trim function where you can manage trims, the major set of trims here, and then use the more delicate fine adjustments using the little joystick. Channel speed, for something like flaps or dive brakes or something like that, you'd want them to come in slowly, both to give a scale type look and also to allow you to adjust for any changes in trim and things like that that happen as a result of the change, things that you haven't used mixing to take care of. So you can set the number of seconds that you want each one to take to change position. Auxiliary channel, that's just simply saying for those extra channels, 5, 6, 7, and 8, what set of switch is going to be used to control them. For me, all of those are just simply used in mixing, so I'm not using a switch to control any of them. But if you did have flaps, or you had landing gear, dropping a bomb, turning on smoke, you know, whatever it might be, then this is where you would assign the channel to a particular switch, and then when you flick that switch, the thing happens. Or you can do it gradual, like say with flaps, it could be a gradual thing using the knob. Okay, trims, that's just showing where the trims are currently set up. So this is different than the auxiliary trims. This is the actual position where the trims are set to get what you want. And then mixes is where I set up the mixing for the ailerons and so forth. So in this case, the mix is on, so it's not a matter of switching it on with a switch. I just want it on all the time, so the switch is none, and it's on. The normal and reverse, that's talking about the direction. So you got the positive and you got the negative. So positive would be the normal, negative would be the reverse. And it's saying how much of the signal that's going that direction do you want to send to the mixed channel. And I want 100%. I want them to get the same signal. So as they look at the graph down the bottom, you can see you get the same thing with each one. Okay, the mixed channels are here. The main one, the one that is getting the input, is channel 1, and that's my aileron channel. And then the secondary one is the one that's receiving the mixed signal, and that's channel 6. So whatever goes to channel 1 is then sent to channel 6. Offset is that if the middle is not the same for the two, you could put an offset in there to allow for that. Okay, and same sort of thing for my rudder and the nose wheel. Channel 4 and 5, 100% each, no offset. It's on, no switch to turn it on. It's just there all the time. Okay, well that takes you to the end of the whole thing, so there's not a whole lot more to be able to tell you about it. Like I say, flew it today, it flew beautifully, felt good in my hand. I don't have any problem with the using the normal AA batteries in it. You know, I've used it a fair bit and I'm still above 50%. And you know, that's doing a lot of testing with it here at home, as well as the flying done at the field. So far, you know, I'm really happy with this. Downside, I don't know of any way to reduce the power for range testing. So on the Spektrum, we hold down the button to do our range test, and we walk out 30 meters, and that reduces the power 50%. And so it gives you a good indication of range. This, I don't know of any way to do that. If some of you do know, please let me know and I'll pass it on to everybody else. So range check, I would like to have more switches. Certainly it'll help just simply to replace the B switch with a 3-position switch like what I've got over here. So I'll probably eventually do that so that I can have the flaps there. But I am going to play around with doing like a real airplane. You know, you can dial in exactly how much flaps you want. So the main thing there is having some way to give me feedback as to how far I've turned it. You know, with a switch it's real easy. I think I got 50% flaps. 50% flaps. Got full landing flaps, and that's a lot easier to manage. But all in all, very pleased. 8-channel radio. $100 Australian for the radio, $30 for the receiver. You do get, well, I think you can get it in different ways, but the package I got came with the transmitter and a receiver, and I paid $100 or $130 Australian. Of course, in US dollars, for those of you over there, it's going to be a lot less. For you guys over in Europe, I'm not sure exactly what it'll be, but quite pleased with it thus far. And so worth having a go. Oh, it does, you know, I did mention that it has the trainer function. Can also be used on your computer for the flight simulator. So I'll give that a try as well. See, this is for connecting the trainer, and that's for connecting your computer. So that's the Flysky FS-ST8 transmitter. And yeah, I reckon it's worth giving it a go. Well, I trust that this video has been helpful to you in working out what you can do with a low-cost transmitter such as this, and hope that you find it really helpful. If it has been, put your comments below. If it hasn't been, put your comments below. If you've got questions and things like that, put them in the comments below. I respond to every single comment that goes in there. and appreciate the feedback that I get from you. So thank you for being involved. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. That helps me, and it helps you to keep everything right at hand so that you can get to all of the information. And then there's also a link here to some other helpful videos that can help you as you pursue your hobby. So happy flying. I'm RC Jim signing off.